Hey everyone, so we're out here shooting landscapes and we just want to put some of those tips into practice. So we're in full auto mode. I'm just going to go over here, not think about it too much, take a shot. I'm on the widest focal length for my lens, so really just taking a big wide shot out there. You can see that it's focused on the sky to get that in good exposure, but the lower areas, the trees and everything are completely dark. Because we are outdoors, there is a good amount of light. All those settings make sense more or less, but I want to get a little bit deeper into this. So first thing, when doing landscapes, I'm going to put on a polarizer. This polarizers, will help sort of bring out more of the blues and the colors, also get rid of reflections. It's something I like to use when shooting landscapes. Next, I'm going to go into manual mode. Like we talked about, having a bigger f-stop is going to just have more in focus. I have a pretty wide lens here. It's a 16-35, so really already most things are going to be in focus, but just to really make sure, I'm going to go to a f8, and this will also be the sort of sweet spot of the lens. It's really going to be sharp and clear in all the corners. Now, when shooting with the polarizer, you have to actually spin the pola to see the difference it's making. So let's line this up, and I'll take one. So here you can see the polarizer more or less off. The sky is pretty white looking, there's not a lot of color in there. I'll now rotate it and really deepen that sky. You can see just how much more rich and colorful the sky is. Now, next is start thinking about composition. The main focus of the photo is the skyline, but because I'm so wide, I'm also thinking about, we have these cool clouds coming in that are illuminated from the sunrise. We also have this foliage in the foreground, and so the concept here was, where nature meets the city. So we wanted to get both of those in frame. So I'm going to punch into 35, just get a little bit closer. Another nice thing is I know I'm shooting in RAW, so I will be able to crop in after the fact if there is anything that I'm not necessarily enjoying. So I set up in that shot the city to be sort of low in frame off to the right, so you had a lot of sky and also some of that tree foliage off to the left, so it sort of shows a contrast there. I'm just going to take a few different photos. I will say that with my autofocus, it was having trouble focusing because I was doing negative space. So the middle point where it was trying to focus was the sky, so it couldn't focus. So I moved my autofocus spot to the lower right corner over the city so it would focus on that. And I'm just playing around. There's this path here, so I'm doing some with the skyline, higher up in frame and having more foliage in the foreground. I'm going to get lower, get higher. Really just going to try a bunch of different things to see what works. And once I've gotten my settings in, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, but as I get more of this foreground in frame, it is a bit darker, so I'm going to adjust my shutter, just make it a little bit slower, maybe 1/25th, just to get more light there. Again, shooting RAW, so I know that I'll be able to bring some out of the shadows. I don't want the sky to ever be too blown out because I won't be able to bring back that information. Clouds are always going to be the biggest thing to give you an issue because they're white and they're reflecting the sun. The sky, not so much, but the clouds will blow out very quickly. All right, so now that I've taken a few wide angle shots, I just want to hop on to a longer telephoto lens just so you can see the difference. This is still considered a landscape. It's just going to be more zoomed in on a specific subject. All right, so I don't actually have that long of a lens that is Sony made yet. I just don't have it in my kit. So here we have a Sigma 50-100 with a Canon adapter to the Sony E-mount. So it's a little bit large, but it still fully works. I will lose most of that autofocus features with this, but that's really okay with me. Typically when shooting more telephoto, it's easier to find that focal plane if the subject's not moving. So I'm going to go all the way to 100. And at 100, I'm actually too zoomed in. I'm really focusing on that skyline. So I'm just going to pull back out to there. So I'm at about a 60, which from the 35 or 16 is, much more telephoto. Great. So I just took a couple shots. There's actually a plane flying in between the two buildings, so it's kind of a subject behind the buildings. It looked really cool. And you can see that this is just really zoomed in on the buildings. It's more focused on that. And it's still considered, a cityscape, a landscape of sorts, because it's, wide shot. It's just a more telephoto wide shot, which I really like. Now, We also have some of the Hollywood Hills. We have the Hollywood sign, couple things around us. I'm going to go around, take a couple photos. But really, this is all about finding a subject for your landscape, something that your audience's eye will focus on when they're looking at your photo. Using that higher f-stop, just guaranteeing that everything's in focus. If you want some foreground elements out of focus, you can still go to the lower f-stop. It's really sort of preference at that point. I've tried a few different focal lengths here, so going from the telephoto to the more wide angle, just trying different things that works for you, seeing what you like most. And also, we're out here in the early morning. We have this great soft lighting. It's not hard shadows. It's just a little bit more interesting looking. We're still in the same park, but we just drove around looking for another view, and we found this great view of the San Gabriel Mountains. Now, one of my favorite things with landscapes like this is when you have one mountain and another mountain behind it. I think it adds this great depth to it. Again, though, I dropped down that f-stop so that everything's still in focus. I'll play with both f-stops just to show when you have a shallower depth of field versus a larger depth of field. But it's just good to try different things. We're also still, the sun's coming up a little bit more, but we have this directional sun. So do I want to be looking towards the sun, getting more contrast in that way, or do I want to be looking this way where the sun's pretty much hitting everything? It's a little bit more even. There's no right answer here, obviously, but I'm just going to go around, take a couple different shots, get both the city and the landscape. Another thing you'll see in my shots, I really love negative space. I think having a lot of sky in there is a really cool effect. We don't have quite as many clouds over here, but earlier there were some great shots with a lot of clouds. It adds a texture to the sky. So again, all things to consider when you're out shooting your landscape photos.